Hello and welcome to Willows Green Permaculture. Another slightly rainy day, a rainy spring day. Love to see that because the plants and the animals need this rain. And also when it comes to taking photographs and video of plants and stuff, flowers, a cloudy day is wonderful because the colors really shine through. I'm going to show you just in the next few seconds a few of the things that you're going to see in the video today. So, try and stay tuned and as much of the video as you got time for, because there's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. And I'm right here sitting beside this pail full of water and a big stick sticking out of it right beside our garden. I'm going to talk about that at the very end of the video. So stay tuned right up until the end, and you're gonna find out why I'm sitting beside this bucket of water right here beside the garden. Maybe you can guess between now and then. Give me your guesses in the comments, and we'll see. Before you finish watching the video, we'll see if your guesses were good. Don't forget, if you have any questions, put them in the comments below. It would be my pleasure to answer them. And if there are things you like or things you'd like to see or learn about, put them in the comments below too. Hope you enjoy the video. Let's get started. So, in another video, I spoke to you about making dandelion honey out of dandelion blooms, and I said the first thing you need to do is pick the blooms. All right, actually I'm going to move a little bit further back so you can see. So you pick the blooms and you just you put them in a jar of water, as many as you can in the jar of water. You can stuff it. They're only just starting now, the blooms, but pretty soon there's going to be thousands of them. But I thought I'm going to take advantage now of doing the video, because when there are lots of them, Marguerite's going to get out here and she's going to pick them all. Then I won't be able to do the video. And so she makes wonderful dandelion honey out of it. So all you do is you put as many of the blooms. All you need is a bloom. If the odd stem gets in there, that's no big deal. Get the bloom, as many of the blooms as you can. They look like that. They're just wonderful. Into the water, and what's going to happen is all the nectar that's inside these blooms and all the pollen that's inside these blooms, it's going to get into the water. You see? So there's there. I'm just starting to fill this with blooms, but eventually I want to fill this completely, and all the nectar and the pollen is going to get into the water, and you let it stay in that water for about 24 hours. And after about 24 hours, all you need to do is strain it so that you separate the water from the blooms. So you just strain it through a cheesecloth, or maybe just a strainer. Doesn't have to be anything really fine, because what's going to happen is all that pollen and all that nectar is going to mix in with the water, and when you strain it, that's all that's going to be left in the water. And then you add a little bit of, you'll add, after you've strained it, like so today's Thursday, so tomorrow Friday I'll strain this water. I'm going to fill it with dandelion blooms, and I'm going to strain the water tomorrow, add a bit of sugar, boil it down, and it's going to taste just like honey. There aren't a ton of them right now, but pretty soon there's going to be 5 times as many in the same space on some parts of the land anyway. So there you go. Has to get into that water, and the more you stuff the water, the better. There you go. So I'm going to go look for another spot where there's lots of dandelions. I'm going to finish filling this, and then tomorrow I'm going to boil it down just a little, Adding sugar in is going to taste just like honey. After I've strained it, obviously. Strain the flowers out. Leave the flowers in for 24 hours. At the same time, I'm also eating the leaves in salad. It's really good. So anyway, give it a try. Dandelion honey. It's absolutely delicious. I guarantee. There we go. I think that's full enough. I can't even push them down much further. That's beautiful. My fingers are all yellow now, full of pollen and so on and nectar. I can't wait to boil that down tomorrow. I'll record the boiling down process. I can't remember how much we have to boil it down, but I guess there's what, 3/4 of a liter of liquid in here. Once we've taken the dandelions out, this jar was mostly full of water, and well, once we strain it. But I look forward to tasting some dandelion honey. I haven't had any in almost a year now, so that's going to be tomorrow. This is just beautiful. So these are the dandelions I picked yesterday. The liquid inside is a nice, beautiful, sunny yellow, full of the energy of the sun. We're going to be able to be eating pretty soon. So it's late morning, the next day after picking these dandelions yesterday afternoon. So it hasn't been 24 hours. It's probably been about 18 hours, I guess. So now we're going to do the next step. We are going to put this liquid through the colander, through the colander and a cheesecloth. You don't need to necessarily buy a cheesecloth. Any cotton fabric that's not too thick, although I suppose thick isn't bad either, but if it's nice, if it's a smooth fabric, if it's not full of fibers that are going to come off easily, then that works. It looks just like any type of cheesecloth. So I'm just gonna put one layer thick, because I don't mind if there are tiny particles that get through, because it's probably the pollen. All right, and I've got the bowl underneath, obviously, catch everything. And I'm just going to pour it in. So there you go. Before I do that, let's just squeeze these dandelions one last time. I only did it once or twice anyway. Now I suppose if I waited longer, I put these in the fridge, by the way. This was soaking in the fridge all night, not out. Because I suppose if I had left it out and more than a day and so on, well, it would start to ferment, and then I guess I would start to get dandelion wine. But I'd like the dandelion honey. Love that stuff. All right, so now we're gonna pour it in. Well, that went through really fast. There we go. It's a little bit of pollen in the bottom that I'm gonna soak up with some of the liquid and get it. Let me just squeeze all that water out. I'm just going to take a little bit of this liquid. There it is, by the way. Look at that beautiful color. Take a little bit. through again. That beautiful color. It's all out. There we go, all clean now. Squeeze the rest of that liquid through. There we go. Good. Done. So now let's see how much we got here. This is there we go. Now, I'm not interested in making a thick syrup. I just would like to sweeten it a little. It's good. Not very sweet, but it's good. So I just like to sweeten it up a little. So I'm gonna, for this amount, I'm gonna try it with one cup of sugar, and I'm gonna boil it down, and then we'll see what it gives. But this looks beautiful. I'm just gonna put it in a pot, add the sugar, and boil it down. Time to boil this down. So I've got my my dandelion water with the pollen and the nectar in there, and I've got a cup of sugar, organic raw sugar. That's what we like to use. We do produce some of our sugar with the sorghum and so on, and the maple syrup, but this we didn't produce. Not producing all of our sugar yet. So here we go. I'm just going to pour this in. Turn the heat on. And I'm just going to start boiling it. I'm going to let it boil first. When it starts to boil, that's when I'll add the sugar. So I'm just going to let that start boiling for now, and then we'll come back. Okay, so it's good. It's boiling now. Good strong boil. See that beautiful yellow color. I'm gonna add the sugar. Oops. A little mess. It's gonna smell like caramel in here now. Oops. Okay. That already changed its color. Not yellow anymore, but yeah, usually not yellow after you've cooked it. There you go. Of course, you can make as big a batch of this as you want. It's just at some points in the season, we get literally thousands and thousands of dandelions. Boil it down a little bit. But I just wanted to pick enough to be able to do this video to show you how it's done. But now it's like doing any kind of syrup or any kind of jam. I often do syrups more often than I do jams, just so I don't have to use as much sugar. It doesn't get thick necessarily, but it doesn't matter. What I often do, how I often use our syrups and so on, is I'll mix it with, when I use it, I'll mix it with some plain yogurt, put it on toast and stuff. That's really good. This, I just can't wait to taste it. Now, I've got a little stainless steel bowl here where the heat passes through quickly enough, so I'm going to put some of this in here. Cool down a bit so I can taste it. See if it's ready. I'm going to put it in the fridge. That's how I test my jam and stuff too. Just going to wait long enough to until I can taste what's in the fridge. Then, because there's so little here, I'm just going to put it in a clean jar and put it in the fridge, because this isn't going to last 48 hours. Not even a liter here. Not even what's that, a quarter of a gallon here. That's not going to last with the four of us here. Everybody loves dandelion honey here. It's healthy too. Food of the bees. Okay, so this has cooled down a little. Oh, nice. Oh my goodness. It already tastes like honey. Okay, that's it. Now you could, if you wanted a thicker syrup, because this is sort of like almost the consistency of a very thin maple syrup. If you wanted a thicker syrup, then you just add more sugar. It really tastes like honey. Very nice. Now at this point, a lot of people will pour this once again through a cheesecloth. I don't bother with that. Everything in here is clean, and everything in here is good. And so if there's a tiny little bits of fiber in there, well, that's good. It's going to be good for my system. I'm not going to pass it through a cheesecloth. Just going to put it right into a jar. But because I'm not canning this, I'm not going to try and keep it in the cupboard or whatever. I'm just going to put it in a jar, so I'm not boiling the jar or anything like that. So I'm going to let this cool down a bit, and then I'll put it in the jar afterwards. Because I don't want a jar cracking on me with a cold jar with hot liquid. Gotta be careful with that. Just let this cool down a little, put it in the jar, and then I'll show you what it looks like at the end. But it tastes great. Dandelion honey. There it is up close. One thing I forgot to mention, as you saw, this didn't boil for very long. When I put it on the heat, and then I left and came back, it was just the time for it to come to a boil, and it came to a boil fairly quickly. And then I was videotaping the whole time until I turned the heat off. And so I'll check it later. I'll see how long that I actually boiled it for, but I just think it was probably 3 or 4 minutes max. And so, because once again, the more dandelions you put in the water, the more you stuff into that water, the more concentrated the pollen and the nectar will be, and so the less time you need to boil it down, so that because the water will already be full of flavor, full of concentrated dandelion nectar and dandelion pollen flavor, so you don't have to boil it as long, just for it not to taste watery, let's say. And so, like I said, it was just a couple minutes. I'll have to see. Probably in a few weeks, there's going to be a lot more dandelions out there to be able to do something really a bigger batch with a lot more dandelions and a lot more concentration. But this stuff's really delicious. I just tasted the rest of it that I put in the fridge, and really, really good. It's almost cooled down enough that I can put it in a jar, and then I'll show you what it looks like. It's cooled down enough. I'm gonna have breakfast after this. So here goes. And see how much we got here. Looks like maple syrup. There we go. There it is. Some dandelion honey. Probably even put less sugar in that too. Make dandelion tea out of it as well. There's a little bit of pollen there floating on the top. That's really nice. Okay, there it is. So let this finish cooling. Stick it in the fridge, because this isn't going to last very long at all. And now when you see dandelions growing on your yard, well, now you know something you can do with them. The leaves for the salad, the flowers for the honey, the root to make a coffee type drink out of, and also the leaves to use as a green mulch like you would comfrey. So dandelions, wonderful plant to have that we don't even have to plant. I'm transplanting some rooted elderberry cuttings, and doing this on a rainy day. It's a little bit rainy today, and now I'm going to show you how I can water these without needing to have access to a hose or anything. This is my main chinampa, and here's an uncovered section of the chinampa. So this is the chinampa up here. Stuff growing in it all over the place. But I purposefully left a portion of it uncovered so we can see what the conditions underneath the Chinampa look like. And so here it is. This is what it looks like at ground level. And I've got this little, I don't know, it's kind of like a decorative dipper here that I attached at the end of a stick, at the end of a piece of wood. And now, without having to bend over, I can just dip that right into there. Voila! Got some water I can water my transplant with. The elderberry doesn't really need to be watered because it's drizzling out, but I always like to put a little bit of extra water in case it stops raining or something. All done. Now I'm going to transplant this one. The reason why these elderberry cuttings were in pots is because when I trimmed these particular cuttings from the elderberry patch in our rain garden, it was the end of January of actually of 2023, and the ground was totally frozen solid, and so I just put them in pots, and I just put them in my nursery area outside. Of course, they stayed outside, and proceeded to forget about them until this past week, and now they're finally going to be in the ground after a year and a few months. I can also water by just coming here, grabbing some water out of here, or I can just grab it straight from the culvert. But there's not always water coming out of here, and so the other section, the bottom of the Chinampas, there's water that'll be there a month, even 2 months after this stuff, the water maybe will stop coming through here. Comes through here most of the year, but there's sometimes when it doesn't. Good afternoon. Today, I'm going to transplant a bunch of my onions into here. I already transplanted some of them about a week and a half ago. I transplanted 400 of them, 2 flats of 200 onions. I felt they weren't quite ready. Today it's April 24th. Yesterday was the full moon, last night. And I think these onions are ready. These ones are, it's a flat of 128. I like the flat of 128 better than the flat of 200. The flat of 200, which is the same size, I just felt like the little pots were just way too small. They're better for things like maybe lettuce, stuff that don't really have a huge root system. So we'll see how they are today. This here is we call our compost garden, or our straw bale garden. And what this is, it's a garden that's raised, and it's raised simply by being surrounded by straw bales, and get those at a very reasonable price from a local wheat grower. Pay $5 for a big bale like that. So yeah, we're very fortunate. And so I call this our compost garden because between November and March, this is what we use for our kitchen compost. We put it directly in here because the kitchen is just a few meters that way. The house is just a few meters that way, and the door to the kitchen. So in the winter time, November until March, let's say, when there's a lot of snow and stuff, this is where we put our compost, because from March until November, let's say end of March till the beginning of November, we put it about 20 meters that way, about 60 feet that way, a little further away, but we want it closer in the winter. And then in March we stopped using it, and I covered in leaves and stuff that are already partially decomposed that I've had since the fall, and I would have put a layer of leaves also in the fall here, and then between March and now, it's been decomposing with the warmer weather, and I add another layer of already composted compost from the other composter from last year, and I put that on top of the stuff that's here, enough that we can plant in it, which is really nice. So in the summertime, there's a ton of energy in here because, and also a lot of heat from all that compost, a lot of water from all those, the vegetable waste and so on that's decomposing. Ton of water, ton of heat, ton of energy, ton of nutrients, and so the vegetables are really, really happy. Now we've planted potatoes in here. We've planted the Three Sisters in here. We've planted corn and so on. We've planted sunflowers in here, squash, broccoli, cabbage. Planted a ton of stuff, a ton of different things in here. This year what we're going to plant is another set of companions, onions and peppers. Peppers are going to go later, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up the onions so that I've got enough, the peppers will have enough space and so on. So between all the peppers there's going to be rows of onions. Probably have onions here and a pepper here and then a pepper here and then a pepper here, and probably there'll be about 4 rows by 4 rows of peppers, and then between all those some onions. So there we go. I'm just there's some of the stuff that we were composting that started growing, but it's not a huge garden here, so I want to save all the space for the onions and the peppers because neither of those like to have too much competition. There's Meaty coming for a visit every time. She's always here. Hello, Meaty. These little cells I didn't like. Not for onions. Not going to use them next year. They didn't really work very well. I think I might have to get some onion sets. I don't know how well these onions are going to do. I mean, the root system underneath is really good, but not bad, but better than a week and a half ago anyway. I put about between each onion, I'll put about a fist of a distance, a little bit more than a fist, because that's about the size of a good onion. And I say a little bit more because you gotta leave a little bit of extra space for the roots that come out the sides. Actually, these are a lot better than a couple weeks ago. See, there's some root holding on. Last time, like it came out like there was maybe one root on them. So the 128 cells work better than the 200. 200, they were just way too small. I'm trying the 200 out with some lettuce and some carrots. I'll see if that works. Keep you posted. I think what I'm going to do here is plant 2 rows of onions and then leave space for the peppers. Onions have been a real learning curve for me because they're just real slow growers, so it don't compete too well with other plants. So this year I tried starting them all indoors, but even indoors they grew slow. But next year I'm going to use bigger pots. The thing is, well, maybe these next year I'll do 128 cell flats, and I will also probably do 48 cell flats. The thing is, I like to have at least 700 onions for the year, 700, 800 onions. And so when those were all in 48 flats, well, that'd be like 16 flats of onions inside the house. It's hard to find space for that much. Now, we've got the greenhouse now, so maybe I can just sprout them in the house, and the greenhouse isn't too cold in February. Maybe they'll be fine out there. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how the greenhouse does in the winter. Greenhouse, I hope to be able to have lettuce and broccoli in there right up until like January or something. We'll have to see. Yeah, these onions are a lot better than the ones a week and a half ago. Nice thing, however, about these little tiny plugs, they are quite easy to transplant. They're well hardened off. These ones aren't fragile. The root system isn't as strong as I'd like, but the onions themselves aren't fragile. They're not breaking, they're staying standing and so on, and that's a good thing. That's what I wanted. Giving these onions a generous amount of space. What I'm going to do in front, I'm going to be using just like here, I'm kind of using these onions to mark my pepper rows. Around the front, the ones I haven't planted yet, I'm going to be transplanting them into the area where we will be putting broccoli and cabbage and cauliflower. So I'm going to use them to mark our rows of cabbage and cauliflower and broccoli. And the ones I transplanted about a week and a half ago, the 400 of them, those kind of just gave them their own spot. Cold, and I just felt I really needed to get them out. I thought anyways that they really needed it. They probably could have waited. And so I just wanted to get it done. So this soil is nice and loose, which is really nice. Very rich. And this straw also holds on to a lot of water and a lot of heat and so on. So everything's, the root systems are really going to be able to have a lot of energy available to them. A lot of water available to them as well. I was just working on transplanting the onions, and I was cleaning up to go to the other garden to finish transplanting them, and inside my sleeve suddenly I had a huge pain, and I realized I was being stung by something. I'm assuming a bee, although I didn't see it. And so you can probably see there's a little bit of red there. It hurts because I haven't done anything yet. But now what I'm going to do is, right here you see these old flower spikes, seed spikes. This is curly dock, which is a cousin of French sorrel, or of lemon spinach. And these seeds are edible, and you can make flour out of them. They're really good. But what I'm going to take is, there are not too many leaves right now because it's early spring. I already took a few, but then I thought, I'm going to share this as a video. So you just take some leaves. Now, I like to take a generous number because this plant produces a ton of them. And so you just kind of squeeze them all together, and then you just rub them. Some people might chew on them first or put them in a blender, but just the action of rubbing like this does the same thing as chewing on them or putting them in a blender, and this is a lot faster. So you just rub on the area that is stung until it doesn't hurt anymore. You can rub good and hard because the leaves aren't going to do anything to you. And well, you see my arm's all green now, and but there's no more pain. It's all gone. There's a little tiny little pain, but it's going to go away pretty fast. This stuff, it's magic. It takes away the pain. Here you go. These 200 cell flats are not worth it for onions. Out of the 200 cells, and some of them, well, I got between 80 and 140 onions out of the 200. I'd sooner use a 48 cell flat and put 2 seeds in each cell, get 96 onion plants out of it, and just give each cell double the space so that the 2 onions can grow side by side. We'll see if this was worth it for lettuce or carrots. Thankfully I didn't buy too many of these. It's April 26th. A couple days ago it was the full moon, and now I've planted about 1/5 of my potatoes. Maybe a little less, maybe I'm gonna plant about 6 times more. I'll probably plant between 200 and 300 potatoes, at least 200, but maybe all up to 300, depending on how much space I've got. I'm planting them all in this area right here. But for today, it's just these 4 rows. There's 11 medium red potatoes here, all homegrown, all from last fall's harvest. here's another 11 potatoes, mostly white. Those 3 right there, 1, 2, 3, I found in my compost pile. They had spent the winter in the compost, and they didn't even have any eyes in them or anything. It was great. That was about 3 weeks ago. They spent the whole winter outside, and as I was preparing that garden to plant in, and so I took those and put them with the rest of the seed potatoes. I thought, oh, those are really strong potatoes. They lasted the winter, and they looked like they were ready to just take into the kitchen. And then here are, I think it's another 9 small red potatoes. The size of the potato really doesn't matter when you plant, because it will grow large potatoes too, if that's the type of potato it is. So there you go, and here are another 6. So we got 4 rows happening here, right here, and then we're gonna fill this other area, and then there are a couple areas out back, a couple Chinampa areas. Now 3 Chinampa areas out back I'm gonna plant potatoes in. That I've done videos on all 3 of the Chinampa areas, and that's where I'm gonna plant the rest of the potatoes. So I should get somewhere between 200 and 300 potatoes planted for this year, and that should give me between 2,000 and 3,000 potatoes for the year for the kitchen. Now I'm going to cover these potatoes with mushroom compost. So all this earth that I've pulled up into these mounds beside the rows is going to stay that way for mounding up the plants as they grow. What I'm going to cover the potatoes with right now is some mushroom compost that I went and collected from a mushroom farm right here. A local mushroom farm. They let you come and pick it up. So I bring bags and I bring pails. Maggie and I went yesterday, and we picked up a whole bunch of this compost. There you go. That's all I'm going to do, is going to cover these potatoes with probably about 8 to 12 centimeters, like 3 to 5 inches of compost on each row, just like that, just throwing it on like that. And pure mushroom compost, full of nutrients for the potatoes, you know. And so and then as they grow, I'm gonna put this earth that's piled up on the sides onto the base of the plant as it grows. The rest of the potatoes, the ones that I'm gonna plant later, I'm gonna wait another about 4 weeks until the next full moon. So that, I believe, is May 23rd. So probably the 24th or the 25th of May, I'm gonna plant the rest of my potatoes here and out back on the 3 Chinampa areas. Because you know, we could still get some pretty strong frosts. The potatoes should be fine, but you know, if they're well grown, you can lose part of the stuff up top, and that's why I'm not planting that many. But these are the ones we're going to be able to harvest early. Like, we'll be able to probably harvest some in July. Everything is starting to grow in this area that I broadcast seeded in that video recently. There are thousands of plants here. The section over there I broadcast seeded later, but there's lots of stuff growing there too. I can't wait to see what comes up. Here's a detail. You can see just in the image here, which is just a few centimeters wide, there are dozens and dozens of plants there. Now they're gonna find their own space with each other as they grow, as in nature. What I have right here, a bucket of water with a big stick sticking out of it, a couple of yogurt containers inside the water, and this is just outside my garden. And this is for the animals. It's also convenient because if I need to quickly water something, then I can just grab a couple of yogurt containers full of water. But what this does is the animals are often thirsty, and often they'll take bites out of our tomatoes and peppers and whatever, well, out of people's tomatoes and peppers and so on, and zucchini, not because they necessarily want to eat those things, because those aren't native plants anyway, so they're not really interested in eating those for any nutritional value. The reason why they take those bites out of them is because they're thirsty. Often the animals are thirsty. We've got a creek right beside us, but sometimes animals are a little nervous about drinking out of the creek because they don't know what might be inside that creek hiding that might want to go after them. And so we got these buckets of different sizes and shapes. Eventually I'd like to get some that are kind of decorative. But anyways, this will do for now. And it's so the animals can come and drink. The reason why this big stick is in it, if you've got like a little animal that goes in there to drink, because sometimes the water gets low, if it jumps in there to drink and then can't get out, then it'll end up drowning, and we don't want that. So we put this stick inside. That way little animals that get stuck inside, and sometimes little insects and bees can sometimes get stuck in that water and for somehow not be able to get out. But this stick allows them to climb out of the water and climb clear out of the bucket and either jump down or fly away. So that's one of our strategies, to have fewer animals come and eat stuff out of our garden. That's gardening guided by nature. It's really okay to have native wildlife around your garden. It means that you've got a healthy environment. And if they're taking all of your stuff, it's because there's some kind of imbalance somewhere. There's just not enough food for them around, because maybe there aren't not enough wild spaces around. And so that's why we have to create more and more wild spaces in our communities, public wild spaces for native animals and so on. And if we do that, those animals are going to end up taking less from our gardens. So we've got to get involved with our communities. We've got to get involved with our municipalities and cities to encourage them to make more space for native wildlife by setting aside the space, and then in those spaces planting native shrubs, trees, and flowers. And in doing so, they're going to help all the people of the community be able to get more out of their garden harvest. And also they're going to help the farmers because the farmers will have less of that pressure on their crops, because the wildlife is going to have the kind of food that they really want to eat. So there you go. I hope that was useful. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful, and hope you got a whole bunch of ideas you can use. Every garden is different, and you're gonna rarely hear me say you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way. But yeah, I will give advice about what seems to really work. But sometimes things work really different from one place to another. So I hope this was helpful, and if you found the information useful, then share it with your friends. And if you haven't done it yet, then subscribe. Support our channel just by subscribing. You don't have to do anything else, but if you can subscribe, that would be fantastic. And then you can, watch more of our videos. So have a great week, and we'll see you next time.